We're joined by Kevin Donnelly, the Director of the Education Standards Institute. Kevin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Do these results surprise you?
No, and in fact I wrote a couple of books about education in Australia. One of them was published about 7 years ago, and I warned then that we really needed to do a lot more to lift standards. So it doesn't surprise me. We've in fact been in trouble, if you like, for many, many years.
Why do you believe standards have slipped, particularly in maths and reading?
It's a complicated issue, and so really in a few minutes it's hard to go into detail, but just generally speaking, we have trouble with disruptive classrooms. When you look at student behaviour, how our classrooms are managed, we have more disruption compared to those countries that do better. We also we don't allow our teachers enough time to mentor one another and to help one another, if you like. In places like Singapore, Hong Kong, they actually respect teachers. Children respect teachers, and they're well-resourced, and they have a lot more time, free time, if you like, to learn from one another and to improve classroom practice. It's not about money, and I mean all the debate about the Gonski model over the last couple of weeks really isn't the issue. I mean, money is important, but again, it gets back to a rigorous curriculum, academic curriculum, effective teaching practice, good teacher training. So there are lots of things we can look at there.
Although the figures do show, when it comes to a needs-based funding model for the education system, that those disadvantaged students are doing worse again. So that would seem to indicate that at the very least, they need a bit more help.
We generally, look at disadvantage, equity, and that's a good thing. The previous funding system that came in under John Howard was actually needs-based. So there were what they were called partnership agreements, where a lot of money was earmarked for disadvantage. And I think that's a good thing. But I think we have to be careful here. There's a lot of research showing that Australia, in fact, compared to many other countries, does well in terms of equity. So we're not as bad as people often make out. And also, just finally, when you look at the reason why our students underperform, there's some very good research by Gary Martz at the University of Melbourne, which proves that it's not just about socio-economic disadvantage. It is about teacher quality, classroom environment, student motivation and student ability, and obviously what happens at home.
You said obviously what happens at home. That gets back surely to parental responsibility and involvement as well.
It does, but often it doesn't rely on money, if you like, or, I mean, the fact that non-English speaking background students, migrant students, if you like, outperform native speakers is a real issue. I mean, you only have to look at a lot of students who came out after the Vietnam War, for example, who went on to become doctors and lawyers and did very well. If you look at the Year 12 results around Australia, often you get Asian-born students who are living here who do very, very well. And that gets back to what happens at home, respecting teachers, knowing that hard work and motivation, can succeed if you're prepared to put in the yards.
Should state governments as well respect teachers by offering them better pay and conditions to attract the best and the brightest into the teaching profession?
We need to do a lot of things, and certainly money is an issue. I mean, it is a very difficult job. I taught for 18 years, my wife taught, my daughter's teaching. One of the issues, though, is it's not just about money. There's a lot of bureaucratic overload. And I know the Federal Minister has talked about getting rid of this command and control model from Canberra. The reality is we're duplicating a lot of the red tape, a lot of the micromanagement, and teachers are finding that very difficult. Principals are complaining about the fact that there's so much bureaucracy, so many forms to fill in, so many things to do in terms of accountability, that it's taking energy and time away from classroom practice.
We've heard from overseas educators that in their view our curriculum is very overloaded here in Australia. It's a big, bulky curriculum, and in order for students to learn and learn well, they don't need to have that much stuff put on them. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree with that, and in fact one of the early books I wrote, Dumbing Down, I looked at what happened in America, Asia. I benchmarked curricula around the world, if you like, in terms of best practice. The Americans say that a curriculum like ours is a mile wide and an inch deep. We try and do too much. We should be focusing on the basics, especially in the early years of primary school.
How big a factor are class sizes, do you reckon, in educational achievement?
It can be difficult. I mean, if you've got a disruptive class, and this gets back to parenting, frankly, if children come to school not ready to learn, not willing to learn, if they haven't been taught to respect authority, to respect teachers, It's so much harder if you've got a class of, say, 25 or 30 just to maintain discipline. But when you look at those countries that do better than we do, Korea, Japan, Singapore, Shanghai, they have larger classes, they spend less money, but they get better results.
So what do you think is the answer here?
It's a difficult question. I mean, we need to look at so many factors. Teacher training is important. Many teachers, beginning teachers, haven't been taught how to teach reading properly. I know there is a debate. Christopher Pine talked about phonics and phonemic awareness, and also about direct instruction.
I thought the phonics thing was... I thought the debate over how to teach reading was over. Is it back on again?
It is, and
Okay.
I mean, a lot of the research shows that beginning teachers have not been taught that at university, so it is a problem.
Good to talk to you this morning. Thanks, Kevin.
My pleasure.
Thank you.